We're looking now at chapter 12. This is Attack by Fire. Sun Tzu writes there are 5 ways to burn: men, supplies, equipment, warehouses, and communication. If we look here on page 306 of our texts, he writes, there's a season for making a fire, there are days for lighting a flame. There's one way that's relatively easy to understand, so you might want to you might want to start a fire in summer when things are drier. That's going to lend more advantage for making a fire, assuming that you want it to be a large fire that sort of covers everything. You also endanger yourself in that sort of a situation, so it's up to the general to know the season and to be able to predict which way this fire is going to go. Again, according to Taoist understanding, we should but further we can understand this idea of season in a broader way, not just seasons as we think of spring, summer, winter, and fall, but as Sun Tzu here continues, the proper days when the moon is in Sagittarius, Pegasus, Crater, Corvus. These are the 4 constellations of rising when. So there's something within the Taoist understanding of heavens in the sense that the stars are going to also align in a way that's going to make fire particularly destructive. Next, Sun Tzu writes, when attacking with fire, adopt to these 5 changes of fire. If fire breaks out within the enemy camp, respond at once from without. If fire breaks out but enemies remain calm, wait, do not attack. This goes forward for a little bit and you can read that, but I wanted to make the point that one thing that Sun Tzu finds very important is that fire creates an opportunity. He's not necessarily expecting the fire to do everything itself. He's not expecting for the fire to kill your enemies, for the fire to make the decisions and so forth, but the fire creates a certain sort of situation to which the general can respond, and that's what I think is one thing that's important with fire. And so this is why he concludes the section saying, in war, know these 5 changes and be vigilant. So the idea is that the general has to be vigilant, watching the situation that he's created with the fire in order to respond to that. Next, I'd like to look at the section where Sun Tzu makes a comparison between fire and water. This is on page 310. He writes, fire assists an attack mightily. Water assists an attack powerfully. Water can isolate, but it cannot take away. To win victory, to complete an objective, but not to follow through is a disastrous waste. Okay, so let's think for a second about why it is that Sun Tzu is drawing these comparisons between fire and water and what it is that he's trying to do with the comparison. He sets these 2 as almost having an identical role. One, fire assists mightily and water assists powerfully, and if you want to, those are pretty similar terms to my mind anyway. Then he says water can isolate, but it cannot take away. This is curious to me. So there's a way in which water does take away, right? So that water can sort of create a flood and take things away in the same way, or at least similarly to the way that fire can take something away. But there are differences, right? So because fire is going to eat something up. If we have wood or if we have flesh, fire is going to sort of destroy that and turn it all into one sort of substance. So it takes it away in a sort of more of a metaphorical sense, versus water is going to wash it away. So in a sense of location, water does take this away. There is a way that water has a sort of fire-like quality if we think of modern technology anyway, the use of water cannons, water hoses, and things like that. Historically, it's interesting that these in the civil rights movement, at least in Birmingham, there were these famous pictures that were circulated of young children or children who were in high school being blasted with water hoses. Bull Connor took the Birmingham Fire Department, which was supposed to be used for putting out fires and for saving people and for hosing people down, causing destruction, using such a great intensity with the fire hoses that they could strip the bark off of trees. So here we have a fire-like quality or sort of destructive quality of water. To win victory, to complete an objective, but not to follow through is a disastrous waste. So our translator makes the point that this is that the Chinese text is very difficult to understand here as far as what exactly Sun Tzu is saying, and then interpreting that is another difficulty. He makes the point that he thinks this should be interpreted within the discussion of fire and water. And just to go back to what I had said earlier, the general can't expect fire to do the job for him. He can't just say, we'll burn it all and job's done. That's a disastrous waste. He has to sort of follow through. A general can't let fire be boss. The general has to be boss of the fire. He has to use fire in a way that he sees fit.